Last week, we saw Raheem Mostert, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Adam Thielen, Travis Etienne, and Kyron Williams go nuclear in fantasy football as they helped people win fantasy weeks. Now, today, as we head into week 7, I am bringing you 10 players who will do the same, who will absolutely dominate in fantasy football this week. So if you have these guys in your lineup, get ready for a fantastic week. If you're facing them, I'm sorry, it might not be the best week for you. The first player I'm going to tell you guys about today that is going to dominate here in week 7, that is San Francisco's Brandon Aiyuk at the Minnesota Vikings in 2023. The Minnesota Vikings are giving up the 5th most points to fantasy wide receivers on a per game basis, and Brandon Aiyuk has unquestionably been the wide receiver one on this team without any doubt. So let's actually look at this in 2023. Brandon Aiyuk, his team air yard share. He has the number 1 mark there in the NFL. He's accounting for over 52% of his team's air yard share. His team receiving yards share, that's the percentage of his team's receiving yards that he's accounted for, over 41%, the 6th best mark in the NFL this year. His team target share 7th, his yards per route run 6th, and his receiving yards per game, he is 12th in the NFL, even when you consider he missed half of a game with an injury. And if you look at his targets per route run, he has a higher mark than Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra, and Justin Jefferson. The guy is dominating in 2023. That's going to continue. Keep in mind, in week 2, guys, Aiyuk left that game with an injury. If we look at the 4 games this year where he has been healthy, he is averaging 7.8 targets a game, 103 receiving yards a game, and almost 19 PPR points. Now, as we mentioned before, he gets to play the Vikings this week, who have been giving up big, huge fantasy days every week of the year. Remember, 18 plus points to Mike Evans, 23 points to Devonta Smith, 46 to Keenan Allen, and 13 to a rookie in Rashee Rice, who didn't even play 50% of the snaps that week. On average, this secondary is allowing 35 points per game to wide receivers in 2023. Go ahead and fire up Aiyuk with absolute confidence here in week 7. All right, the second guy that I think is going to dominate here in week 7, a player you haven't been able to start for quite some time, but start him with confidence, Aaron Jones at the Denver Broncos. In 2023, the Broncos are the best matchup for your fantasy running back. No team gives up more points than the Denver Broncos. Unfortunately, for Aaron Jones' sake, we haven't really seen that much of him. Remember, in week 1, he finished as the RB1 on the week. No one had a better week at the running back position in week 1, but he only played 47% of the snaps because he left with an injury. Since then, we haven't really seen a completely healthy Aaron Jones. The good news is he's coming off a bye week. He didn't play in their last game. He's practicing in a limited fashion as I'm recording this, and all signs are pointing towards him playing this week. Now, in the rare occasion where he ends up not playing, you can fire up Aaron Jones, but I believe AJ Dillon, but I believe Aaron Jones will be out there this week, and he's going to help people win weeks. Keep in mind, Denver is allowing 172 rushing yards per game. That's crazy. That is crazy type numbers. All other 31 teams, I took their numbers, averaged it out, and they are averaging 109 per game. Denver, again, at 172 rushing yards allowed per game. Ridiculous. This year, the Broncos have given up 29 points to Brian Robinson. That was his career high by a large margin. 96 points to Achane and Mostert combined, 22 points to Khalil Herbert, 28 to Breece Hall in a bounce back game for him, and 16 to Isaiah Pacheco. On average, they're allowing 36 points to the running back position. You got to fire up Aaron Jones as a top 10 play in week 7. All right, the third player that you should start with absolute confidence, he is going to dominate, Marquise Hollywood Brown at the Seattle Seahawks. In 2023, the Seattle Seahawks give up the 2nd most points to fantasy wide receivers. And how fun has it been watching Hollywood Brown this year, or even owning him in fantasy football? Man, I love that guy, and I am super excited to see Kyler Murray back. Their connection is something that is very special. But for Hollywood, even with Josh Dobbs in the lineup, He's a wide receiver 17 so far in the year. Through 6 weeks, he's averaging 8.8 targets and has scored over 16 PPR points in 4 of 6 outings. With Geno Smith, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and Ken Walker, that offense is going to be able to score on the Cardinals, which means the Cardinals are likely to be down in this game, needing to pass the ball to one Hollywood Brown early and often. Seattle allows the 5th most passing yards per game. That's good for Hollywood. That's good for Dobbs. And 38 points per game to fantasy wide receivers. This is a match made in heaven. Start him up, fire him up with confidence. You got to find a way to get that guy into your lineup this week. All right, the 4th player that I am confident in, it's a tight end. Let's talk about tight ends here. Dallas Goedert versus the Miami Dolphins. Now, I understand Dallas Goedert has been mostly disappointing in 2023, okay? However, after his 1-target game in week 1, he has been much more involved. From week 2 onwards, he's averaging 7 targets per game, the 6th most amongst tight ends. And the Dolphins are currently middle of the pack versus tight ends for fantasy, but this is less about the matchup, guys, and it has much more to do with how I envision this game panning out. The Eagles versus the Dolphins have a 51.5 point over-under this week, according to Vegas. That is the highest of the week, meaning Vegas is telling us that they expect the most fantasy points to come from the Eagles versus Dolphins game this week, aka let's expect a potential shootout, which it makes sense, right? Think about it. The Dolphins score the most points of any team in the NFL so far this year. The Eagles are top 5. So there's a very good chance that this is a shootout game. I want pieces in this matchup, including Dallas Goedert. Goedert has as much upside as any tight end not named Travis Kelce this week. Start him with confidence. All right, the 5th player that you should start, because he's going to dominate, that is Isaiah Pacheco versus the Los Angeles Chargers. In 2023, the Chargers give up the 10th most points to fantasy running backs. And anytime the Chargers and Chiefs play, I mean, let's think about it, guys. It feels like every time it is a barn burner shootout with a bunch of points. And this is Vegas's 2nd highest over-under of the week. So I expect nothing less here in 2023. I also would expect Isaiah Pacheco's impressive 2023 campaign to continue this week versus the Chargers. And here's the deal with the Chiefs, guys. This team has completely changed. This is no longer put up as many points as you can, throw the ball as many times as you can, and win games. No, this is the best defense Patrick Mahomes has had in his era, which is allowing them to effectively establish the run on the ground. And Pacheco has become a key piece of a very good offense. Let's look at this. Pacheco from 2022 to 2023, his averages, check this out with me, his touches per game from 10.8 to almost 18. My guy's averaging almost 18 touches a game. That is a crucial piece to an offense, and that is volume for days. His targets per game go up to 3 from not even 1 per game last year. He already has more targets this year than he had in 17 games last year. His total yards per game go up to 87, and his fantasy points per game up to 14.5. You have got to get Isaiah Pacheco in your lineup. I'm expecting a touchdown from him here in week 7 in what should be a really fun game to watch. All right, the 6th player that you should start because they are going to dominate, that is Jaylen Waddle at the Philadelphia Eagles. Remember, guys, remember what I said about Dallas Goedert, about how this matchup, we want to start him and pieces in this matchup because it is the highest over-under of the week. Vegas is predicting a bunch of points, and it makes sense because these are 2 high-powered offenses. Jaylen Waddle fits the bill here as well. After a rough start to the year, Waddle has bounced back in a big way. In the last 2 weeks, he's recovered his form. In that time span, the wide receiver 11, averaging 9.5 targets per game and over 16 PPR points. And now he faces an Eagles defense who, in their secondary specifically, is not the same team they were last year. They are struggling with their secondary. That's clearly the biggest weakness of this team, and they're going to need to address it, but they haven't addressed it yet. They're giving up. So far on the year, they've given up 24 points to Kendrick Bourne, 40 plus points to Jefferson and Addison, 17 to Mike Evans, a season high 22 points to Terry McLaurin, 39 to Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua combined, and a season high 17 points last week to Garrett Wilson. Start Jaylen Waddle with a ton of confidence. He's a top 15 play for me here in week 7. All right, the 7th player we're going to talk about is a quarterback. Consider this my streaming quarterback of the week. I know a lot of people are dealing with injuries and bye weeks, so there's a couple names in the rest of this list for you guys today that I wanted to kind of bring as streaming options, okay? So the 7th guy that I think is going to have a fantastic day at the quarterback position, that is Geno Smith versus the Arizona Cardinals. In 2023, the Cardinals give up the 5th most points to the position, and Geno, he started off a little bit slow so far. He has just one game over 20 points this year, but I'm expecting a bounce back in week 7. He'll have his full arsenal of weapons: Metcalf, Lockett, JSN, and finally, this team is no longer just using JSN at the line of scrimmage. His depth of target is up. He just played a career high in snap percentages. I mean, we're going to see a very fun passing offense. It's going to click here very soon, and I think that happens in week 7. Remember, this is the matchup to do it. The Cardinals have been giving up big quarterback games all year long. Daniel Jones, guys, his only good fantasy game this year came versus the Cardinals, where he put up over 35 fantasy points. On average, they allow 20 plus points per game to the quarterback position. They are just one of 5 teams to allow that mark. So start Geno with some confidence. The 8th player that is going to dominate this week, and consider this my wide receiver streamer / spot start of the week, a guy that I have confidence in if you're dealing with buys, injuries, etc. That is Wan'Dale Robinson at the Washington Commanders. In 2023, the Commanders give up the 3rd most points to fantasy wide receivers. And again, if you got injuries, if you got buys, you can put Wan'Dale in there with a bunch of confidence. Since returning from his ACL injury this year, Wan'Dale has seen 5 or more targets in every single game. It finally clicked last week versus a very difficult Buffalo defense in an offense in New York where there's no clear safety blanket before Wan'Dale arrived. He's now taken up that role, and it doesn't matter who's behind center. He will be the highest targeted player on this team. And now he gets to play the Washington Commanders, who are letting everyone have huge weeks. A.J. Brown with a 40-pointer. We saw so many wide receivers go off against the secondary. They're currently allowing 36 points per game to the wide receiver position. I am promising you here, right now, you'll get at least 10 to 12 points in PPR leagues this week for Wan'Dale Robinson. All right, and the 9th player that is going to dominate this week, this is my running back spot start, okay? So I'm giving you 3 streamers in a row. My running back spot start of the week that I have confidence in, Jerome Ford at the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts give up the 11th most points to the position. And similar to Wan'Dale here, again, if you're dealing with injuries, you got a bunch of buys, you can start Ford with confidence. Since Nick Chubb went down with injury, Jerome Ford is averaging almost 17 touches a game, almost 80 total yards per game, and 16 PPR points per game. Now he's got a great matchup versus the Colts, who allowed 21 points per game to the position. PJ Walker has been competent. This is a game where we're going to see 2 backup quarterbacks, PJ Walker, Gardner Minshew. I expect running backs on both sides to play a key part in their offenses, both on the ground and in the air, as dump-off / check-down options. All right, the 10th player that I think you should start with confidence, and I'm bringing this guy's name up because we've had so many questions on our live stream this week. Do you still believe? Do you still believe? What's our confidence level? I'm confident he is going to dominate still. That is Puka Nacua at the Pittsburgh Steelers. In 2023, the Steelers allowed the 4th most points to the position. There's been too much of an overreaction from our community, at least in my personal opinion. Might not be your belief, but I believe some people are overreacting too much to Puka Nacua's value now that Cooper Kupp is back. Since Cooper Kupp returned, Puka is averaging 9 targets per game, more than Hollywood, more than Olave, Jacoby Myers, Mike Evans, Brandon Aiyuk, and Calvin Ridley. And he has scored a touchdown in one of those 2 games, 50% rate. And he almost scored a touchdown last week. If he caught that touchdown in the end zone, if it was a good pass, if he made the catch, we wouldn't even be talking about Puka as like, what is your confidence level? We would all be like, yes, it's still working. The reality is this offense, is going to be Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. There is no Kyren Williams, there is no Ronnie Rivers, and they're at the Pittsburgh Steelers away from home against a weak secondary. This offense will be those three guys. That's the three-headed monster that's coming to Pittsburgh. Start him with confidence. The Steelers allow 36 points per game to wide receivers. Fire him up with confidence and win your week. So, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. I do believe that if you start these guys, you're going to have a great week. But hey, just quickly, drop a like on the video to show me some love, to help the channel grow. Subscribe if you like fantasy football. And if you guys want to help out this channel, if you want to help us grow, if you want my rankings, if you want exclusive advice, if you want a personalized DM to us for advice, then go ahead and use our promo code LAND. Sign up to the Flock Fantasy website, which is a website where all the best YouTube fantasy content creators have combined to give you the best product, the best perks you can find in the industry. Again, use our code LAND, DM us if you sign up, and we'll get you all hooked up if you have any questions. Check out the description and the pinned comment. Outside of that, good luck this week. Go get a win, and we'll see you very soon. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy. Even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.